The first one.
Could we not have 5?
No.
Effing
you can't.
okay, all right.
I have to go back and break the model.
Hello and welcome to episode 183 of the Rockstar CMO Effing Marketing Podcast. It's Saturday the 16th of September. I hope you've had a great week and you are well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm no rockstar, but with this podcast, I share the marketing street knowledge I've picked up on my journey from sysadmin to CMO with the help of some true rock stars. My guests and chums who I hope will inspire the marketing rockstar in you. Come say hello. You can find us on rockstarcmo.com or Rockstar CMO on X or on LinkedIn. This week, I share thoughts about popularity versus profitability. We follow up on last week's topic with our resident Rockstar CMO advisor, Jeff Clark, who shares his approach to marketing technology. And we end the week with my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose, in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar for a cocktail and a marketing talk. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
I talk about how art, awareness, revenue, and trust is the mission of marketing, particularly in B2B. But we need to think about how we balance our focus on those three things. Do we want to be profitable or popular? That's my thought for this week. A couple of weeks ago, I read a post on LinkedIn by Jay Akunzo, who, if you don't listen to his podcast or follow him on the socials or read his blog, is incredibly helpful and open about his own experiences with his coaching business and podcasting. Jay shared that his consulting business sells high-ticket things which require lots of trust before you're likely to buy. And his post is about how he could get more attention on social media, more awareness, by posting the sort of thing that attracts likes, shares, and discourse. But he asked if that kind of content would help build the trust his clients need to have in him. Well, probably not. As Jay says, you would look more like you're selling deodorant or soda than powerful strategic transformation of his clients' brands or careers. After I read his post, I was chatting to a chum over lunch who's a very respected consultant, analyst, and writer. She posts on LinkedIn, but she doesn't play the social hustle game. And she shared how none of her equally successful consulting chums are stars on the platform by them vanity metrics. Coincidentally, in the same week, I was also chatting to another chum of mine on a totally different topic, and he shared that people we both know who are killing it on the socials are not seeing this convert to business in what seems to be a difficult consulting climate right now. It seems, as Jay observed, popular is not profit. Jay's advice tends to be for folks running their own businesses, but I'm in the corporate world of B2B marketing. And as I mentioned at the start, I bang on about how the mission of B2B marketing is to create art, awareness, revenue, and trust. Is it the same for us? Could we compromise profitability or revenue with a drive to be popular or awareness? Well, yes. The three things that are art need to be balanced. You can create a lot of awareness, move the needle in all the vanity metrics, post the kind of shallow content that gets attention and clicks, and see those vanity metrics move up and to the right. I've been saying for about 20 years that if you train a cat to play the piano and put that video on your B2B website homepage, you will blow your website visitor metrics. But would it create trust? Specifically, easy for me to say, with a much smaller audience who influence or decide whether you make the most important part of my art acronym, revenue. Probably not. My example of the cat playing the piano is silly, but you see this kind of advice all the time about how to attract top of funnel attention, likes, and shares. But you have to think, do these things create trust in your brand? We can learn a lot from Jay. Whether you're a consultant or a B2B brand, getting attention is different from getting customers. Think about the content you're posting as you want to be profitable, not popular. Okay, that's quite enough of me. I'll include a link to Jay's post in the show notes that inspired that thought. And I've been doing this thought thing at the beginning of the show for a few weeks now. I'm curious what you guys think of this new slot. You know where to find me. RockstarCMO.com or Rockstar CMO on the socials. Right. Time to join Jeff Clark, our resident Rockstar CMO advisor and former Forrester research director in our marketing studio.
Ian, welcome to the studio. And
thank you, mate.
And I like
For
how
some reason,
I love that.
to...
By the way, I love that coffee mug that you've got. You have to send me one of those things.
Yeah, I also love how I knew full well you were going to ask me a question, but I just thought I'd take a sip of tea at the moment that you asked me a question. Yes.
But it was the Rockstar coffee mug or tea mug, depending on what you're putting in it.
Yeah. It's funny. We were having a conversation about that the other day because somebody saw that there was the Rockstar CMO logo behind me, which isn't there at the moment. And they were like, what's that? What happens is I go onto Vistaprint, and when you have a distinctive logo, it's very hard only to buy one thing, and you end up buying mugs. I should send you some. We keep saying I should send you some stuff.
I know, but it's probably costs more to send it over the ocean than it would be for me to go make my own.
That's true. Anyway, so thank you for welcoming to the studio. And we are back to our normal structure, which is where you're the brains of the operation, and I shall ask you questions rather than last week where I provided the random input. And last week we talked about, I was going to say back of a fag packet, but as we've both discussed, that does not translate well. But basically, my view, based on the back of a beer mat or the back of a napkin.
Back of a napkin?
It could be the front of a napkin.
It could be.
If I was to sketch out the 5 effing fundamental marketing technologies that I would want in my next CMO gig, those would be the ones I would draw on a napkin in an interview with some CEO or somebody that was just about to offer me a shed load of cash, right? So we've got that picture in our heads. That's good. But you, as always, with your incredible experience at Forrester, have a much more structured view. And you talk about capabilities. So I thought we'd explore that. What say you, Jeff?
Well, there are many ways to describe the different types of marketing technology, but when you're trying to put it in the perspective of what does the marketing department have to use to support their work, and it's often called the Martech, your stack, right? I never really liked the term stack because it implies something that's kind of like, sits in a box somewhere or, stack of boxes. And it really is a little more.
Sorry, mate. I saw this in the notes. I'm really curious about this because we always talk about Martech stack and we talk about Frankenstacks and things like that. Stack is always in there. What term do you prefer?
That is a really good question. The thing about stack is that it implies that it's kind of like it's bounded. It's a pile of things, and really what technology is more integrated with the individuals, the people. So if you think your people, process, and tech, it's more like an ecosystem than it is a stack.
A stack.
So I would go with a marketing ecosystem, technology ecosystem.
All right, so let's get back to the sensible business.
Let's get back on topic. I think the way that I like viewing it, the way that we developed while I was at Forrester, and they're still using, is this kind of a capability view. You could call it a business requirement view, but it's to say, what are the things we're trying to accomplish?
Right. Yeah. So this is something we've talked about a number of times on this show, right? When you say capability, you don't mean capability of the product you're purchasing. You mean the capability we need, right? So that's your requirement.
Capability of the marketing team, which would include the people, process, and the technology.
Right. Yeah. Because that's an important distinction, I think, to make. Because often I think that we get ourselves slightly distracted by the capabilities of the demo that we see and think, oh, I need that shiny thing.
Yep.
But your business is in no way ready for whatever that shiny thing is, right? So what are the capabilities you focus on with your clients?
So there's 4. And the first one,
Could we not have 5?
no,
F
you
in
can't.
5. Okay, all right.
I have to go back and break the model, but at least it's not 10. Okay, so one of the things to think about is that all of the pieces, all the components, all the categories of capabilities, they're all focused on helping you with audience engagement. So from the top, the first thing I mentioned to the last thing I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, is we're focused on audience engagement, but the first category of capabilities we call is delivery. This is probably the thing that most tightly relates to the systems we went through last week of the systems engagement. Your ad tech, your email engines, your web CMS, the front end of it, your CRM system that's where you're tracking engagement from both marketing and sales.
Right. Okay. So this is everything that touches the customer. So that's cool. So number 2, what have you got for number 2?
Number 2, and this is a I think it's often overlooked from people who are trying to map out what their Martech ecosystem is going to look like, and it's orchestration. So it's what helps you decide what you're going to do in that interaction with a customer. What's behind the delivery tools that decides how interactions are delivered or facilitated? So, to me, these are systems like digital asset management, marketing resource management, which kind of gets in kind of not just asset management, but planning and budgeting and just determining kind of a hierarchy of how you're going after to attack the customer. Collaboration systems like Slack, workflow automation like an Asana. So everything, again, with the idea of orchestration. What's in the back room that is us like making us decide how the interactions are happening? What gets, when the customer does A and we want to deliver them B, where is that decision housed?
All right, so I think this is interesting because I was exactly this. I was on the same page as you because I can't help now comparing our different models. And you went for 4 and I went for 5. And I think I talked about systems of orchestration. Now, what I found interesting when I was thinking about systems of orchestration, and I like where you've landed on this because this is more like how we as marketers sort of make shit happen, right? So absolutely about workflow automation and Asana and stuff, which I depend on. What about the orchestration of the experience for the customer? So when you say orchestration, do you mean personalization engines, for example, and stuff like that? Or is this purely about how we get shit done? No,
I think it includes the personalization engines. And, again, I think the best way of phrasing it is that when you have your delivery system and it needs to take the next actions, or you need information as to what the next actions I should take, because you've created a plan. So, and the plan would help you say these are when certain campaigns, certain tactics are going to be executed. But then from a personalization perspective, you want to be able to have encoded in your marketing ecosystem that if customer A responds to interaction A and you want to deliver B, what is that going to be? And again, one of the things that's helpful about taking the capability view is that there are any number of systems that could actually have this capability to do this, to take this task. And so, making sure, if you created your plan, these are all different aspects of orchestration that, that frankly, in a lot of companies that I've done consulting with, is that this is either absent or it's not particularly well coordinated.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those areas that I think we touched on last week, which is that every tool has a small amount or a large amount of these kinds of functionalities, like in terms of workflow. And I think I probably mentioned last week, when I was in pre-sales, when I was selling content management solutions, quite often the customer would say, can we turn that shit off? Because they didn't want complex workflow. Yeah. They didn't want complex workflow because it was just 3 of them publishing web pages, right? So I think from your perspective, when you're doing a capabilities assessment, it's understanding which system is going to do that orchestration, presumably, right?
Absolutely. So, if you're setting up, personalization and you could say, I want to make sure that every one of my prospects from a certain industry or a certain segment receive X information, and it's like, oh, okay, so do I do that in my web content management system? Does that come out of my marketing automation system? Is that is that just encoded in the DAM? And then I can start to say whether it's been that particular capability is covered, and what's it covered by, and is it working well? Does it have to be enhanced? Do we need to train people on it? I mean, we start to get into the decision-making process of when I say, "Ooh, we don't actually do that capability very well," or it's absent totally. Then I have to say what tool is actually going to support that.
Yeah, and I think that's good, isn't it? If you go into a team and you've got like this kind of model in place, and you can look at the gaps. And I think often we don't do that, do we? We look at what we're doing and how do I do what we're doing better, and we might be completely missing something. Yep. So I think it's interesting. Anyway, so that's the first two. So delivery, everything that touches the customer, that makes a lot of sense. Orchestration. What's your third?
Third is analytics, because all of the interactions that are happening with the customers and prospects through your delivery mechanisms, you need to be able to have the ability to decide what's working, what's not working, and from a longer term perspective, are we on track to meet our goals of our plan? And so from a systems perspective, I mean, this is another thing I think we touched on last week, is that almost every tool provides some sort of reporting, some sort of insight into how things are going within the context of what that tool is supposed to do. But really, what you need to be able to do is to draw, a broader set of information. Our engagements, our interactions actually working as planned, and are they helping us meet our goals? And so this is where you get into categories of technology like business intelligence, marketing performance analytics, attribution modeling, et cetera, et cetera. And this is also where I think it's really tough to support a marketing team that's got all kinds of different needs to say, where are we tracking the really important things about how we're working against our goals versus the fact that the person who runs email or the person that runs the website have their own particular types of reporting that are key to their job, but not everybody needs to know all the details. Well, yeah, and that's why this is more of a layer of capabilities than it just like one system.
No, but we talked about last week. I think that the other thing is about the audience for those analytics, right? So it's all very well to say, do you know how many MQLs you've got in this particular business unit? Yes, I do. Well, how many are there? Hang on a minute. I'll let you know next Tuesday. Yeah. Is not an acceptable answer, right? So that's why we need to have, these. We talked about this last week about why we need integration and why we need data flow to be integrated. Then you can build these sort of analytics and insights, benchmark dashboards and stuff, don't we? So that's great. So your first was delivery, everything the customer touches, orchestration, how we make whatever the customer touches work, the analytics, the insight we get from that. And what's your fourth? And you've only got 4, so what's your last?
Right. So this is going to be a short episode.
You could have had 5, mate. You could have had 5.
So the fourth one is data, and as I remember last week, you didn't set this as you sort of put this as one of your systems of record, is the data is in the systems of record. Yes. And to me, that the unification of data from all of your systems is an absolute essential to running a modern marketing function. And so typically our systems of record, which I think was a definitely valued category of your CRM system and your marketing automation platform, et cetera. I mean, they typically do not have the capabilities to provide that more holistic view of what's going on with interactions with your customers. And this is where customer data platforms, data unification in conjunction with like a data lake or a data warehouse are really important. You need to plug in all your external data sources. Where does my intent monitoring information go? Where does my my marketing automation tracking of leads, and then it goes into the CRM system, and okay, now that's gone off to another system. So all these things have to come into a centralized spot. And often one of the reasons I think this is a set of capabilities as much as a single system is that there's lots of things you may need to do in terms of unifying the data, enhancing, manipulating data that comes in from external resources. So oftentimes this is a suite of data tools and marketing operations and a marketing sales ops team that is actually helping to manage those tools, sometimes with, the help of data scientists and other people who really, are very skilled in this to create that unified data model that, again, you can run your analytics off of that help, determine how you set up your orchestration tools, which do a better job of delivering to your customers and prospects.
Yeah, I can see how your model is layered. Yeah, absolutely. So you've got delivery at the top, orchestration just beneath that, analytics, which is the insight you're getting, and then you've got data at the bottom. I think that really last week I kind of squidged together data analytics, but I'm curious, I think you did give me feedback of my FN 5, so maybe I can give feedback on your 4. We're missing content, aren't we? I mean, it seems to be in your orchestration layer, isn't it?
Yes, I would say that your digital asset management, your content marketing tools, whatever aspects, your MRM or workflow automation are moving content around, that's where the content sits.
Okay, so from your perspective, orchestration is also the layer in which we are putting the things in place that the customer is going to interact with, or the audience is going to interact with. Cool, so that's your 4. So you've got delivery, orchestration, analytics, and data. So we've got a little... Well, we haven't really got any time, but anyway, I thought I'd ask you. I wanted to ask you how...
Oh, you looked at the clock, did you?
I did just sneakily look at the clock, yeah. And I was wondering how you approach this with clients. Because...
Well, I think one of the things that in doing an assessment, it's like the first question, it's like you have to give me what your goals are.
Yes.
And because what I'm going to do, goals, priorities, however you want to describe that, I want to know what your top 3 or 4 things are that are the burning issues, because when I go to interview the stakeholders within the organization, I'm going to say, what's holding you back from meeting these goals? So if we're having a problem engaging customers, what's holding you back from being able to do that well? You've probably got a good idea about how you want it to happen. Here's what the goal is. Are you not getting enough insights? Are you not, do you not have the right tools? And so as you go through and you interview them, you always ask, it's like, well, what do you use if you had unlimited budget? I shouldn't say if you had unlimited budget, but what would you add? Are there tools you would add? Are there tools that are there that you just don't know what the hell to do with because nobody told you how they could work, and you end up creating a picture. If you take the four layers of the capabilities, you end up creating a picture where you see, there are tools that are absent that just somebody needs to propose to acquire them. There are tools that need fixing, enhancement. Oftentimes, like marketing automation platform or CRM was improperly implemented. That wasn't fully implemented. It wasn't fully rolled out. Sometimes maybe it needs training because they really don't know how to use the capabilities. Oftentimes, there's stuff that's just sitting there, and it needs to be taken off the map so that you can spend your time, resources, and subscription dollars on the new tools. So
just to summarize that bit there. So when you're going in and doing a tech assessment, you look at their requirements and what it is that you need to do, and you go around each of the business units and figure out what it is their requirements are from the marketing technology. And then you've got these 5 things, which is where you then look at the marketing technology stack. You don't like the word stack, but you look at the marketing technology stack and you figure out whether there's absent functionality, therefore something needs to be built, something needs enhancing, something needs training. It exists and can be extended, or it needs replacing. But I presume also in there's duplication and stuff as well. You can you figure out what we already have, right?
Absolutely,
Cool.
because
yeah.
certainly it is as weird as it seems. There's customers that have bought multiple CRMs, multiple marketing automation, but maybe it's from acquisition. Exactly. They haven't effectively sunsetted one or the other, and so you need to simplify it, and you need to make sure that there's support, technology support for the capabilities the marketing team is trying to execute.
Cool, yeah, because I think when we were in touch when you were at Forrester, you had a great case study, didn't you? You probably can't name the name, but where you went through this process with them, and they saved a huge amount of money and were able to go shopping for much cooler tools based on that budget,
and actually that one particular, they gave some money back to the program budget because they determined that there were things that they didn't need, and it's like let's focus on what makes our. I mean, they were very focused on the demand creation process, so they kind of just they took the process, went through the capabilities they need, and then everything else just went off the books.
Awesome. Yes, and it'd be nice if we could refer to that case study. But anyway, trust Jeff.
It was real.
Absolutely, mate. It was real.
And they spoke at one of our conferences, so I could dig out a video.
Cool. Well, if we can do that, I'll include that in the show notes. But we didn't do the weather, but we did a bit of blather about my mug, so I think that's good enough. We've done the topic. We come to our last point in our agenda, which is the song, and I agreed last week to let you choose whatever you like, so I have no idea what I'm letting myself in for here. What are we going for?
I'm going to pick More Than Machines by Bush in 2022, and, frankly, it's just, it's the title. It's like, we are more than machines. We need the machines to support us, but, we want to focus on the capabilities we're trying to execute, people, process, and the technology to support it.
Love it. All right. Well, I am completely unfamiliar with that tune. So this is going to be a voyage of discovery for me as well as for you, the listener. and will we be back in the studio next week, mate?
We're back.
Cool. I'll see you then.
Okay.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everything goes down. It is how we come around. We are born in a dream, but this heart is made of steel. I said I need you now. You are everything to me. More than machines.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was a little bit of More Than Machines by Bush from 2022. And as we alluded to there, Jeff has some great case studies from his clients and from his time at Serious Decisions Forrester. Please get in touch if you want to learn more about those. Right, it's that time of the week to wind down in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar and join Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at the Content Advisory, for a cocktail and a marketing thought. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar. I hope that it has been the beginning of fall for you there. It has certainly been the beginning of fall here in Southern California. So we have a nice, cool sort of crispness in the air that I'm hopeful for. It's perfect for this time of year with sports and where we are, and it's my favorite time of year. So. Feeling particularly energetic, I guess, is the point as we move into the bar, and
I have to interrupt.
Have all kinds of wonderful. What's that?
I have to interrupt you there because you mentioned sports, and I have to say something about our Cowboys. I'm going to say our Cowboys.
Aren't you a sweetheart? Yes. For the 2.5 people in your audience who actually give a shit about such things.
Yeah. But that was you beat New York and they scored nothing at all.
No.
Wow,
that is correct.
Is that abnormal in American football?
It is abnormal. It is abnormal. It is also, not to get too into the weeds, but it is also abnormal to have 7 sacks in one game.
Wow.
4 turnovers. Dismantle is the right verb for what that team did to the New York Giants. Yeah. It was a thorough ass whipping, is what they call it.
Yeah. So for the listeners that haven't paid attention to American football, Dallas Cowboys beat the New York Giants by 47-0, wasn't it, or 46-0?
It was 40-0. Yeah. Yeah. Two of the touchdowns were scored by the defense. So it's like, if only the defense had scored touchdowns, it would have been 24-0 or 14-0. Yeah. So
all right. So sorry to my New York fans, but that had to be mentioned. So anyway, I wanted to congratulate you on that, because I know you loved your American football. But let's get back to and also we had a heat wave. So we had like a September heat wave, and we've just come out of some hot weather, and just like you're saying there, the Christmas is back in the air. So
that's lovely.
So, and we're in the bar. So where were we with the drink before?
Yes, we do have a drink. Yes, we actually do have a drink here. This is again, because we've moved into fall, I have sort of migrated. I don't migrate completely away from tequila, but I do start drinking more whiskey as we get into the cooler weather. And so to sort of bridge between summer and fall, I have serving tonight what we're calling a bourbon Ricky. And it's a little bit of an interesting one. So hang with me here. I'm sure you have all these ingredients in your desktop bar, which will include your favorite bourbon. Does not need to be a particularly like aged or fine bourbon, but a bourbon that is better for this than a Scotch or something like that.
Yeah.
And so get your favorite bourbon, and it's 1.5 parts of bourbon, then lime juice. And I know that sounds really weird, but this is sort of the bridge between summer and fall.
Yeah.
So it's 1 part lime juice, and then again, if you prefer sparkling water, but club soda is really what makes this thing sing. And it would be 5 parts club soda, sort of, just to mix it up there. And then, of course, poured over ice. And it's very easy drinking. It's just a lovely way to sort of bridge the warmness of summer and the coolness of fall, and have something that you can drink in the evening time, and a lovely cocktail.
Yeah, no, I've not tried
and
that.
easy to make.
Yeah, well, I'll be the judge of that. Bourbon and lime juice, there is a really nice combination. I like that. But I'm going to attempt to make that very drink using only the ingredients on my desktop bar. You mentioned ice there, my friend, so I'm going to throw in some ice. I am, of course, as regular listeners will know, going to use the most English of bourbons that I have on my desktop bar, and that would be Hendrick's Gin. Slop a bit of Hendrick's Gin in there. And, of course, my good friends at Fever Tree have assembled for me the most English of lime juices and club soda, and they call it cucumber tonic water. And I shall slow that.
Indeed.
I mean, this is so similar. This week, I think I've nailed it. Let me give this a go. That is delicious, Roberts. What are we calling this?
That's called a bourbon Ricky.
Oh, the bourbon Ricky. I'm not getting any of the bourbon, but is it Ricky like the man's name? Or is it...
The bourbon flavors do. They are a little scant in your version of it. Yes, I would admit.
All right, and where are we going to be drinking these fabulous drinks?
Well, I think we have to go somewhere nice for fall, where the leaves are turning, and those kinds of things. And so I was actually looking at a friend's itinerary last week, and he was up and he was taking pictures up in Maine.
Oh, yeah.
And so it feels like the right place to be is up somewhere in Maine, which is a state here in the U.S. for those of you who may not be aware and maybe a little more global than the U.S. But yes, so up in Maine, there are some beautiful places, Narragansett and some other smaller towns up there where we could sit on the water in some pub somewhere and drink these bourbon Rickies as summer turns to fall and the leaves begin to change and there's a crispness in the air and good sports are happening.
I love it. And I can picture it. I spent quite a lot of time in the northeast of your fine country. And what would we and when conversation turns to marketing, as it often does with us, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking a little bit about content marketing, And it's something that I'm working on because it's going to be the theme of my keynote at this year's Content Marketing World, and it's also going to be, as you'll soon learn, it's really I would call it the backbone of my new book.
Yes.
Which is said in one sentence: content marketing is now marketing.
Yeah.
It used to be years ago when Joe Pulizzi and I were walking around and talking with clients and doing trainings and walking at the event. We used to talk about how the concept of content marketing would be subsumed into regular marketing, and it would just become part of it, and it would become less distinct than it was perhaps 10 years ago. But what I've actually seen, the trend, and my point of view on that has changed, and it's actually the other way around. What we think about now as content marketing, right? So operating not like a media company, but as a media company, literally putting the operations, the activities of content marketing, or a media company, the classic idea of operating content marketing is now becoming marketing full stop, right? So the classic sense of marketing, reach, frequency, paid media, advertising, all those kinds of things, direct mailers, all those kinds of things are sort of fading back into the woodwork. They're not disappearing and they're not dying. I'm not suggesting that, but they are certainly becoming less important than becoming an owned expert and in an owned media skill set, which means operating as a media company. And so the interesting implications of all of that, and this is going to be really my point that I'll talk about, and what's hot on my mind, is that the roles that entails then become much more overlapped with classic marketers. And what I mean by that is that when we think about content marketing today or yesterday or 5 years ago, we defined all these roles that were very specific to the content marketing idea, right? So a content strategy director, or a chief content officer, or a content production director, or content manager, audience development manager, and these roles that we defined and still define to this day. But what we need to understand, and this is the sort of point, is that these are roles, not people in today's world. What's happening is that those very specific roles are themselves becoming the roles of marketing. And so the marketing manager, the product marketing manager, the advertising manager, all of these classic headcount and classic team roles within a marketing and communications organization are now adopting the roles of content marketing as part of their job. And so as we start putting together our teams and our career pathing and all of our strategies, it's super important that we acknowledge that the roles of content marketing are different, but that those roles are becoming increasingly performed by classic marketing and communications professionals. So it's an upskilling and an addition to our team, not a separate and distinct function from our team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a subtle but important difference, I think.
Yeah, but I think the interesting thing there, isn't it? Because I mean, back in the day, I think however long ago it was, over a decade ago, when I think we first worked together, and I was actually a VP of content marketing back then, and we were a distinct function trying to create that within the business, and we still try and do that today, right? So I think it's because we felt that there was a different set of skills that needed to be honed, right? Is there a risk that if this then just becomes part of marketing, that we just drift back into the way marketing's always been done, and that storytelling discipline gets lost? Do you think?
Well, yeah, I do think that that's true. I think that there is a risk of that, right, where it becomes muddy, right? Yeah. And you bring up a good point, which is, in many cases when we're working with clients, one of the things that becomes increasingly important as a business tries to stand up a content marketing strategy is that they actually acknowledge that those roles are important and that they will become part of the official responsibilities. In so many cases, what happens is they go, oh yeah, content marketing, great. When you have time, ... or as your bandwidth allows, ... figure out the blog or figure out this content or go create a process for this, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, that time, that bandwidth, the ellipses that follows all that never happens because nobody has time for that. And so thus it becomes an informal part of what we're trying to do. Therefore, it just never gets done. And so part of the acknowledgement here, and I think it's an important piece of it, is that the business has to acknowledge that these roles are actually, they need to be bonused, they need to be measured, they need to be managed, they need to be part of the official job description, they need to be part of, all of the things that we do in marketing have to include these things. They're not just nice to haves, they're actual activities that are officially recognized.
Right. And how does that sit with, I think something we were discussing last week, the week before, about the sort of career path for the marketer? Because are we now saying content marketing is now a skill for all marketers now, or are you still saying there are defined roles within a business which are focused on content?
Yeah, I think it's, and so the observation that I'm making is that the classic roles and activities that we would associate with content marketing are becoming more important for marketers to understand. In other words, if my job as a marketer, as a product marketer, for example, was the classic, some aspect of the classic 4 Ps, and it was to write copy, is to write benefit statements, it was to write, do all those kinds of things. Increasingly, those are becoming the minority jobs to be done, basically the activities to perform, and the roles of content marketing are becoming increasingly the more important roles and activities to do. So from a priority standpoint, that's what I mean by when I say sort of, I know it's a bumper sticker sort of idea, but the idea that content marketing is marketing now is kind of that idea. It's like, that's what marketing is in 2024, right? Content. It is what we would classically call content marketing. It operating as a media company, as, getting our arms, our activities, our strategies, our processes, our approaches, our measurement, all of that is around operating as a media company would, not in the classic direct marketing campaign by campaign operation that we have for 50 years.
No, I love this thought. I think it's completely right. I mean, and it's really interesting, the observation you make there about the way it really happens inside a marketing team or inside a business, because, in my own day job, we've just formed, my company is made up of acquisition. I had a bunch of different marketing teams. We've brought everybody together in one marketing team, and we had to do all the things first. This has been going on for a couple of months, and it's only now that we can then start looking at the strategic stuff. And I'm, through force of will, want to create a content marketing strategy, but it would be so easy just to get lost in the day to day. It's just so easy. Yeah. And the interesting thing is you get lost in the day to day of things that don't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, I see so many marketing departments these days are lost in the sort of thrashy activities that used to mean something. They used to be, for example, arbitraging and figuring out the 0.1 or 0.2 decimal points between the cost of paid search across different kinds of channels, right? Yeah. I see so many marketing, activities that get wrapped around the axle of working on that activity that they have no time to do anything else, right? Or, publishing landing pages or publishing, all of these kinds of things that are classic direct marketing activities that sort of are now being, deprioritized in order to create more interesting activities such as, let's figure out the story that we're telling, and let's figure out our owned media strategy, and let's figure out how we're engaging audiences and creating better, more higher quality leads and opportunities for our business by simply,
creating content that creates that engagement. It makes people want to, continue to engage with us.
I mean, I gave a presentation at Martech Fest in Utrecht last week, and I bang on about this business of art, awareness, revenue, and trust. And I believe that's what marketing needs to do. I came up with a counterpoint to that, which was war. So create art, not war, and war is wasteful acts of randomness. And I thought it was quite good.
Yeah,
which is exactly
right.
what you're saying. Is we're spending too much time on wasteful acts of randomness and not focusing on our strategy, which I think is excellent. All right, mate. Well,
That's
where
right.
are people going to find content that is not wasteful acts of randomness? What do you think?
Well, they'll find it on our website, which is contentadvisory.net. And and of course, that's where we're putting most of our thinking these days. Shiny new, sort of more white space available kind of new version of our website
Yes,
that's up and running.
And of course, your book, Content Marketing Strategy, is out as well. And I managed to get it really fast because I pre-ordered it.
It is in the UK. It is out and available in the UK. It will be in the US. It will be available on the 26th of
during
September.
Content Marketing World, which I should also mention that you're going to be speaking in Content Marketing World in a couple of weeks too.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
All right, mate. Well, aside from your book and your wonderful I can mention your podcast as well with Joe Polizzi and your wonderful website. When people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you, my friend?
Well, they'll find me on LinkedIn primarily these days. I'm kind of taking, Twitter is day by day, I guess, or X or whatever the hell it is these days. But LinkedIn is where I'm spending all of my time on social media.
And Threads has gone a bit quiet too. We had a bit of fun on Threads, and that seems to have gone a bit quiet last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm sort of sitting by and seeing what Threads does.
Yeah.
I've been uninspired by Threads.
I'm getting the impression most people are doing the same.
Yeah,
but all right, mate.
Indeed.
And most important for me, will you be in the bar next week?
I will indeed.
I look forward to seeing you then, mate. I'll see you. Cheers. Thank you, Robert. Something to think about there. Like so many words we've put in front of the word marketing, like digital marketing, it seems content marketing is now just marketing. So, that's a wrap on episode 183 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. Thanks to Jeff and Robert for sharing their insight, and to you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. You can find all of our links and the things we discussed in the show notes on rockstarcmo.com, along with our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes. And please let us know what you think via the socials. Drop us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app, or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, I'll have a guest. Although he said he'd be back, Jeff is actually going to be away. But Robert will be in the bar as usual, and I hope you'll also be there and join us again here next week on Rockstar CMO FM.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.